Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to take a second to talk about one of my favorite brands right now. You guys know I don't give bad recommendations, so I really want to introduce you guys to my friends over at Bryght. They are an anal bleaching company, but their products work head to toe. They do in treatments as well as take home products that literally show instant results. Guys, I did not believe it myself until I went to a show and they did a trial on my hand. And I'm not kidding. My hand was lighter within 2 to 3 minutes. Swear. The company is not only women owned, but the really cool thing about this product is that it is all natural ingredients and can be used on all Fitzpatricks. So if you are an esthetician that's looking to add something to your space that not only helps to lighten your skin, but makes you crazy money, their treatments roughly cost $3.40 for you to use, but you can charge anywhere from $50 to $290 per treatment, which is like an insane ROI. So I could not keep this to myself. I love the brand. I love what they stand for. And what's really cool is that they're fans of the podcast. So they gave me a code exclusively for you guys. And they told me before they gave it to me, they do not give codes out. So I felt really special. So you can save 10% on the link below using the code TWP, which obviously stands for the Waxing Podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to the brand, and I am excited to welcome you to the Bryght family. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Waxing Podcast. I am so excited to be bringing on our next guest, Mikaela. She is a licensed esthetician of 2 decades, and she also specializes in human design.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. I am happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into all of our questions, I have so many, and I know that I have jam-packed this episode for hopefully really good information. For all the people that are like, human design, what does that mean? Do you want to give like a really quick kind of summary of what human design is?
Yeah, it's a system that is comprised of multiple different, basically branches of ancient wisdom. And you're just taking your date of birth, location, and exact time and plugging that in. You get what's called a body graph. And from that, you can derive all kinds of information. And so it's like astrology combined with the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the Hindu chakra system, quantum mechanics. It is like modern science as well. So it's kind of it's a spiritual science, and you really can learn so much about yourself. And I always say, like, it's part of my design, but I use it to help people love and accept themselves is essentially what we do with it.
I think it's obviously so fascinating because I've been following you for a while. So I know how you utilize, human design to make people in our industry better at what they do, better in their business, and just better all people. But what's really interesting is how you got started. So I want to talk just a little bit about, taking the time machine back to 2 decades ago to when you became an esthetician. I think your story is really amazing, and I would love to know how it, shifted into human design.
Yeah. It goes back even further, and I will give the really brief version, but when I was little, I only ever wanted to be a doctor, like period. It was like, I wanted to help people. I think that healer gene was like always in me. And then I got really serious in ballet. I went to New York. I danced for New York City Ballet School. That was my life. And I thought I was going to be a professional, like I was on track, like where I was at and everything for that to happen. I had a career-ending injury at 15. Your career starts so young when you're in that world. And from there, I was always a really, really good student. I'm a line 1 for anybody listening that understands human design. I'm a 4-1. So line 1s, we love to study, we love to learn. So I was always excellent student, but I just didn't have my passion, like there was no passion for anything outside of that. So I was really lost, and honestly, like really depressed. And so kind of some roundabout way, I took college courses, but it was like, I just don't, nothing was like the thing. Somehow I actually enrolled in massage school briefly. And then it was there that I found out about wait, you could go to aesthetic school. I always knew about aesthetics, like where other people are like, what's an esthetician, 20 plus years ago. I read Vogue, I read Allure, like I knew what that was, but it was like, oh, I thought they only existed in like New York or LA Fashion Week, that type of thing. And then come to find out I could go to school here locally, to become an esthetician. So I was like, well, okay, this is it. Threw myself into that and was just very set on, again, this kind of goes back to the doctor thing, being in medical. So I've always been in dermatology and plastic surgery, laser girl, all of that. So that's how the aesthetics thing came about, and it made sense to me. It was like this combination of like medicine and aesthetics, like the beauty of like ballet, but sort of that pull towards science and medicine.
Kind of a perfect mixture, really. When you think about that, like ballet and beauty and the science of like the doctor and the all of that. I'm like, you're right. That's very connected.
Right. I'm like always in my own head. I'm like, it makes a lot of sense to me.
It really does.
Yeah, so that's how I wound up in that, and it was definitely something that's like very passionate about, good at, like I was always just took my job really, really seriously. But then the rest of it was all like personal interest, like
now was that like in your like obviously now you're an expert in human design, so like the way that you grew up from being little and passionate about ballet and taking it all the way to the top until unfortunately you got injured, but then pivoting and going into aesthetics where again you took it all the way to like the medical, which in my opinion is like at the top of the esthetician chain. Do you feel like your human design matches that when you look back and you're like, wow, all along if I would have just known?
That's such an interesting question and very astute, because again, we know you're a projector, that it's like to like know, projectors know the right questions to ask, but it's like that you zeroed in on that. There's something in I already mentioned it, I'm a 4-1 profile. It's very rare, but we're obsessive. So it's like I've only ever had a couple of things, but whatever I'm super into, that's why the passion has to be there. It's like if I'm into it, I am all the way into it. Like there's just kind of like nothing else really exists at that point. So
like
yeah,
it turns into your hobbies as well.
Yeah, it turns into my life. Yeah, it turns into my complete life, and I love that. I am somebody who's just like sort of single track, and again, that is part of my design and wanting to be, like the best at whatever it is that I'm doing, for sure. That is in my design.
So going into like aesthetics for 20 years, when did you, because obviously like that is a great career, like 20 years. I mean, you're an expert, and a lot of times most people will just stand on that expert, platform, right? They're like, I'm here, I have it, I'm just going to coast. Like I know what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, but you shifted. And so do you feel like you shifted into like the new obsession of human design, and then you single track mindedly hopped on that train?
It's funny because like, all of this other stuff that I think people didn't expect from me, that's all like my personal interests, right? Things that I was always like very into from the time I was a little kid. I joke, I'm a Pisces, so I'm like, of course, like I love the mystical and spiritual things.
My son's a Pisces. My sweet baby. I love Pisces. I love them.
I'm like, I'm the biggest Taurus fan. My son is a Taurus. I'm just like, oh, my favorite. like low key. I'm like, you can't have favorites, but my favorite.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and it was like, and in the last couple of years, honestly, it's like it's been a thing, to go from being what you would consider like successful, right, air quotes, of like, what, I'm at the top of my game as far as, my schedule is full. I don't have, like all the things, like you said, I mean, kind of probably the life that people are striving for if they really want to like do their job and do it well. I had that. And then just to be like, wow, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. Like I just felt like there was more to it. And as you know, like even from seeing the class that I sent you, it's like there is so much of for myself like attacking the outside, and I think that is aesthetics in general. It's like let's do so much to the external and not a heck of a lot to the internal. And I already mentioned like depression, like that's been a theme throughout my life. That is also part of my design, and just feeling like, gosh, you know what, I can do so much outside, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel better inside. It's just sort of this band-aid. And I was always into astrology, and then like 7, 8 years ago, human design. If you're into, you know what I mean? If you're into like mystical stuff, like these things are going to come up, and it appears in my life one day. And having that background already and that deep understanding, because I'd already studied that very deeply, it just clicked. And I was like, like kind of the keys to the universe, I felt like had been dropped into my hands. But it's been an interesting pivot, you know, like to go in a completely different direction and not have people understand it, and also not want to leave my industry, but want to bring something. Again, it's part of my design. I'm like, I'm not supposed to go out and to new people. I'm supposed to bring information to the people who already exist in my life. And so to not force it on people, but hopefully get people interested and excited about something that's completely off in left field. But again, it's kind of like how I said, the doctor and the ballet and aesthetics. It's like, it makes sense to me. I'm just waiting for it to make sense to other people.
But really what's funny about what you just said is, like, you know, you talk about bringing human design into the lives of estheticians. And I find that so valuable, because a lot of the times people are experiencing the same things as you. We are so used to treating the skin on the external. We don't focus that much on the internal, especially on ourselves, right? We always come last. If the appointments are made for us, we just don't feel like doing them, like all of that stuff. But yet we're striving for perfection because we feel like the client or the customer who's looking at us is needing to see that. And so it really does draw like a fine line between, you know, caring for your external, but also making sure you're nurturing your internal. And so when you are bringing human design to the estheticians, it's actually such a unique niche and so needed, because you're looking to make sure that we, and I say we, because I'm an esthetician, are like finding that completeness from the internal externally, you know? So
1,000%.
I loved everything about this. I remember actually when I was in Dallas, because I think we briefly walked paths. Yeah. But that was the time that I learned about what you did. Ashley told me about your story and how you've been an esthetician, but you focus on human design. And at that moment, which is funny because it was a long time ago, and it's funny how the universe works, but I was like, I need her on my podcast. This is like so essential for estheticians looking for that North Star. Like, you can help find it.
Yes, it is. It's funny that you even use that phrase, the North Star. It is in your chart. It really is. It really, really, truly is, which is so cool. Especially, I think, if you just like suspend your disbelief and just kind of roll with me, you know, and hear these things. But yeah, you're spot on. I think it's like a really popular thing too now in aesthetics and in like these fields where it's like, you know, love yourself, or I want to make people feel good. And you're like, but how are you really doing that? And also, a lot of us, you know, on the provider end of things are out of whack, you know, like they're the ones that are like, I have body dysmorphic disorder, I have issues, and now I'm like the drug dealer to everybody else, you know, like I need to.
That's such a good way to put it.
Right? I need to get right with me first before I'm touching other people. But also in that vein, and this kind of comes with things that I'm actually going to be teaching in Dallas this September. And where I see like my work really going, like my sort of secret thing that I've had, I don't want to say secret, but like, you know, kind of the bigger vision that I've had for a really long time is that we work in a profession where we really do work on and touch people, and we have access to helping so many people. And that's really beautiful to me. So it's like, if everybody sort of, I don't want to say everybody, right? But if a lot of people hop on the train, and then you're like, you will have the ability to just boom, branch out and help countless people with really truly loving themselves.
How close do you think human design and like energy play a part together? Because I mean, I think everyone should believe in energy. Like, I can understand that like human design, like, you know, with an open mind, I think it will come really natural for people to say this makes sense. But when it comes to energy, I'm like, we all give that. And so when we think of like human design, how at least I'm interpreting it is like teaching me about my human design and the way that I help people or can motivate people or receive energy can overall help how I help others.
1,000%. Yes, that's
right?
exactly
It's very like intertwined and aligned.
Completely. And how
Yeah.
best to use your energy.
Yeah.
So I'm a 100%, I think, again, people are sort of like, oh, you're going to twirl out of the back room like Stevie Nicks. And if you meet me, it's like, I look very normal, like no tattoos, like just dressed in black or scrubs, like look just really just plain, just very, very normal, and talking about this stuff. And I really do take like the science side of it. And, and with so much of what design is about is like, just try it, just experience. It's considered a science experiment. So just try it, see what happens. You start to hear things. You're like, you are talking about me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you are totally telling me about me. This is wild. Like, you couldn't know this, but yet you do. And then when you start to sort of express in that way, it's so beautiful. Like, I don't know. There's just so many interesting guidelines you could kind of take for your life, and things that are very comforting and reassuring that will just inevitably help you,
That's what I think. I'm like, I just don't think anything but positivity could come out of a situation like this. Really,
Right.
because at the end of the day, you're learning about yourself, and there's nothing more important than that project in life, the project of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, as a provider as well, this is something Ashley Curtis, as an Angel's Ashley and I were just talking about this weekend. She's always saying, if people understood what you were doing too, from the provider perspective, she's like, you're giving them a tool to help them talk to their patients and clients about themselves. And people love to know more about themselves. They love, it's just like, you are, estheticians are often, we joke, we're like the therapist, but we're not trained to be therapists. We're not trained in a therapeutic modality. And yet this sort of does give you tools to really help talk to people, and again, just give them a little bit of life direction, make them feel better about themselves, like find those things that are beautiful about them on the inside that they maybe never had validated. It's really, really powerful.
So I usually wait until the end of the episode to get like where to find you and what you have to offer, but I'm gonna like shoot it right here because
Sure.
I want to drop it in before we get going on like my human design, just because I feel like at this point I definitely have some people listening that are like, all right, I'm in. Like, how do I figure out how to utilize these tools to help me in my business?
I love that. So there's a number of ways, and it's so fun to kind of mentioning Dallas. And I'm like, a year ago, I didn't have what I have now.
Yeah.
Kind of building it all up. But the first place is like, obviously like Instagram. I'm at Mikaela MacLean. My website is mikaelamaclean.com. But you can link in bio, all that stuff. You can sign up for the free guide. The free guide is going to take you to get your free chart. And once you have your chart, you can read a little bit about yourself. And then you're like, hey, this sounds cool. Okay. $11 masterclass. I sent you the class, so that's like the baseline.
I mean, it's so good. Jam-packed. I learned so much. Truly.
Yeah, 1 hour, and it's like, if you're ready to go, or if you've heard about human design, you're like, oh, okay, well, I am a projector, but I've seen a couple of single slides on Instagram. It's like, no, just sit down and do an hour class and really learn the things. So that's where you start. I have a golden experience guide course. If you're like, I do want to learn about this, it's called Your Energetic Marketing Guide. So utilizing human design to best market yourself in aesthetics. Now, kind of the funny part is that it's also just human design 101. If you want to learn to look at a chart and begin to understand things, that's there. I have my podcast, and that course gives you like a guide to like how to use the podcast. It's like, I have so much info. I'm building a library.
You have so much information, but so also useful. And I had like, when I look through your stuff, it's very easy, like to find everything that you need from your website, your Instagram, and all of that.
I try to make it super easy. And then we just launched this Monday. I'm Solo Esthetician Love, her academy. So I'm going to be a part of that and doing more stuff. And then of course I have things that I'm teaching that are coming that is utilizing human design and energy work. So that's my energetic aesthetics. So
amazing.
That's where you can find me.
Amazing. All right. Are you ready? I should say,
Oh,
am I
I'm ready.
ready? Because I'm like, I feel like I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay,
We're
so
going to talk about your chart.
yes. And so Mikaela reached out to me. Well, back up. I reached out to her to have her on the podcast. And then she gave me some homework. And so my homework was to deliver her where I was born, like specifically, like city and state, what
Mm-hmm.
time I was born, and the date that I was born. Am I missing any?
That's it.
That's it,
Just
right? Okay.
those three little pieces. That is
Okay.
it. Yep. And so then we get your chart, and you know, you are a projector. So I would say that that's our wise and insightful guides who are here to not do all the doing. And so it's funny, the stories that you posted this morning about, like, you know, oh my gosh, you use the word depleted, and like
Yes.
that's a very typical thing for our projector friends, is that their battery, it's like they work very efficiently, very, very smart, very intelligent people, but it's like it's not about doing all the doing, right? It's what you see, it's what you can contribute. They're typically people who see, again, we were chatting before hitting record, and you were like, the platform that you record on and all these great things, you're like, it's not about reinventing a new wheel. It's about seeing systems and how to improve upon, how to perfect, how to tweak, how to make things better, how to utilize, basically working smarter, not harder. Do less, get more. That's the projector's gift.
100% me.
Yes.
I'm like, if I could just pay for something to like do it like more just streamlined for me, my money's going there.
Yes, yes. And that's a very smart use of your time and money. And also, projectors are the people who really are here to show the rest of us. Like, number one, you're here to help guide the rest of our energy. Like the people who are the other types, you know, it's like, wow, I see what you're doing, but here's how we could do it more efficiently, we could do it better. And also, to be a demonstration of that is that none of us should be working and doing things we really don't love and enjoy and want to do. So when we see our projectors really living in alignment of like not overworking themselves, not saying yes to too many things, pulling back and just really living in their zone of genius, that's when everyone will benefit, right? Because we see the lived example. So that's like highest level, you know, of just your design. And then they're the wait for the invitation people. You know, it's like, hey, I'm making myself seen and available. I'm making myself visible so that people will invite me into their world. And really, it's like they're inviting you to give them information, to direct them, to guide them, all of that stuff. And you are a self-projected projector. So
Yeah,
this is such an interesting one.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, self-projecting projector. I was like, is it a self-projector? I was like in my Instagram stories being I think I'm already messing this all up.
I know. I loved it. And it means your authority. And I was like, I love this, that you are a self-projected projector and podcasting, because this is all about speaking, and you know the right decisions for yourself in life. So this is so different. Everybody gets told, go with your gut, trust your gut. That is right for a portion of the population, but there are different what's called authorities. And I just say that's the big boss of you. It's like how you really are designed to make your decisions. Some people need time. Some people, it's like, you know, what their heart wants. In your case, the self-projected aspect is that you need to speak, you need to hear yourself. Like you are guided by like your inner compass, and it connects from here to the throat, and when it comes out, you hear that and you're like, I know exactly what's right for me. So it's almost like I speak at people versus speaking to them. I mean, that sounds like, you know, kind of weird to be like, I speak at people, but when you do you know what it means though, right?
I watched your like in-depth class that you gave me. And so what you said was, you know, a lot of people hear speak at and they think to themselves like, oh, speaking at people, not listening, but it's more about like speaking at and then going and having it go right back in. So then you can like dissect it out,
almost like self-process.
That's a good word for it. Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's just so interesting, and it's so different than the traditional go with your gut information. So for you, it's like there's that inner compass that's always going to know what's correct for you, and it's just about you listening to it, you know. So Sorry.
I was going to say, there has been, no joke, so many times, especially in the last, 2 or 3 years of starting the podcast and starting these new like ventures and things like that, where I've had to just like call my friend who knows nothing about this industry and just talk her through
Mhm.
situations. But again, I don't call her because I need the advice and the wisdom. She doesn't have it
Exactly.
because she's not in the industry. Not that she's not wise nor has wisdom, but she doesn't have it on the particular topic. But what I've found is that when I talk to her, I end up getting more clarity than when I talk to people
Yes.
who do hone in on these, because then I get really flooded with information or ideas that I didn't really think or put on the table. And then now I'm like going between, oh my gosh, what's right and what's wrong?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. That actually, I'm stealing this story now because
Yeah.
that's a perfect example. Like you said, it's like somebody who's outside of what you're talking about, and so they're not going to be trying to give you advice on it, and you just need to. That's it. You already have it. You just need to
Mm-hmm.
hear it. You
Yeah.
need to
And
hear
they're a
yourself
listening
give it.
person. They're like
Yeah.
the best for all the right reasons. But yeah, when you start to speak to people that are giving you ideas and advice, and I think you should do this, I think you should do that, it's like, it's almost like, not that I don't take that either. There's a place and time for that too. But I find my best moments are with this friend of mine who
Yes.
does not offer anything in return.
Yes. No, that's
Yeah.
the perfect person for a self-projected
Yeah.
projector.
I'm going to
I
call her,
love
Meg. I
that.
just love you. Be my friend
Yep.
forever.
Yep. You're exactly what I need. No, that's so cool. And then kind of like beyond that, you are I know I mentioned my profile a couple times, but you're a 3-5 profile, and I laughed because I thought that was so immediately interesting. It's like, as we mentioned, we've met. I am supposed to meet people through people that I already know. So this is kind of
Hmm.
goes back to me bringing human design to the aesthetics community versus me taking it and trying to go outside of that. And you being a 3-5, it's like the 5P, you're like, oh, I want to have you on. And to me, I'm like, and like just being able to reach out to different people, that is the job of a 5, is like kind of what they call universalizing things. But the 3 side of you, profile is so fascinating and very big if you're going to look at marketing yourself in business. Very important pieces to pay attention to. The 3, I love to affectionately call them, they're the graduates of the school of hard knocks. It's like I actually had to do the thing. I had to live it. I had to get my hands dirty. They're not a line one like me where it's like read it, study it, learn it, go deep.
Hmm.
And then you're like, I can help people. The 3 is like, no, I actually had to do it. And I had to
Hmm.
fall off the horse and get up and multiple times and to really understand how like life and the material plane works. So the 5 is like, let me take that information, let me take all these experiences that I have learned from and let me universalize it, meaning let me get it out to everybody. Like a 5 wouldn't be limited like me, where it's like, okay, it's like the people I know and knowing, meeting people through
Yeah.
the people that I know, and that's how it works. And 5 is like, I can reach anyone and everyone, and you will have special gifts and things. Basically, the practical solutions you've really derived from that side of like living and learning to then take and give to everyone. So again, podcasting, what a beautiful way for you to do that. To reach the masses with practical solutions, essentially, to help.
So fascinating. How, so like, when people are looking for their human design,
Mhm.
how many are there? Like, are there just so many variations? Because you know how it's like you have your astrology and you have your
Yes.
like main ones, but then you have, it goes deeper. Then you have like
Oh
your,
yeah.
and you're like, what is it? Like, I'm a
Oh my
Taurus,
gosh, you
but
have
I'm like a, you know?
every planet, it's like, oh, you're a Taurus sun with an Aries moon, and like
Yeah.
a Sagittarius North Node, and yeah, it's like it is like that in a sense, because basically it's like there's no two charts that are exactly alike. There's so many variables within the chart, so many fine granular details that that everybody is different. So that's also what's really cool too, is that this is not generic. Like the very high level stuff, you know, even watching your class, you would have seen, oh my gosh, wait, there's 5 different authorities projectors can have. So there's like that, and that's top of the pile as far as like importance. So I think that's really cool when you realize like this is not generic. This is the science of differentiation, meaning like let's get away from being homogenized. And again, why I see this as being so important, again, in a field that is so saturated with people, especially in like say the last 5 years, especially post 2020, where everybody is really getting in the game. Like 20 years ago, I didn't know other estheticians.
Yeah, you're probably like the only one in your like town, state.
Yeah, you're just like, there is just far and few between, and now there's so like, and the different avenues, medical esthetician, a waxer, a lash artist, like there's so many varieties. So to really understand yourself and understand how to stand out, and not stand out by doing something that's out of alignment. It's about how do I be the most myself, so that I will attract the right people, the right clients for me, the right opportunities. I will present myself in a way that's congruent with who I really am, and not, I don't know, I'm just so anti being anything that you're not,
Well, I actually love that you just said this, because I want to talk about, and because we're in an industry where we're always looking outward into what other people are doing. So tell me a little bit about what you think happens when somebody works out of alignment or out of their human design, because maybe they're just all the time. Yeah, right. Because they're just trying to do what this person does because they think that formula is the formula that works.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. It's funny, I think last year in Dallas, like one of my lectures was about that. It's like, how do you stand out? It's like, it's a sea of pretty girls in black scrubs, and, like what makes you any different? And everybody's posting the same content, and you see one person who's big doing it, so that must work. They're successful. I'm just going to take that and make it my own. And it's sad because it's just a lot of very generic stuff, instead of like really learning about yourself. And so it's sort of twofold. It's like when you learn about yourself, then you know what actually will work for you. I keep mentioning this about like, okay, for myself, I'm not trying to reach the masses. Like I understand. And sometimes it's like, well, shoot, that would be cool. Like it would be really nice to be of interest to lots of people, but I know that that's not necessarily the way that I'm designed. So on one hand, I remind myself of things that are very pertinent in my own chart to really like be okay with, and sort of, I say, self-soothe, like, okay, girl, this is not the way it works for you, and that's all right. But then also to look at other people and understand why it does work for them, and being okay, right? It's like, it takes away a lot of the comparison, to others. And again, when you're accepting and loving of yourself, then you can do it for other people. And I think that's just vitally important,
That's like such a great outlook on it, because really it's like, it seems almost sometimes impossible not to look at what other people are doing and think, well, like completely. They're growing way faster than me, and they have more clients than me, and they have already opened a brick and mortar. Yes. They went right out of school into their own studio. They didn't work for somebody for 5 years. Like there is just so much constant inconsistency in our industry that it drives you completely mad if you let it. And it's because we have such like a low barrier entry to get into our industry. And so there are so many different, like everyone is just at a different place.
Yes.
And it's, it's not like your traditional 4-year college, then, all of that. It's like, it's crazy. Right. Our industry is crazy.
Oh, it totally is. It totally is. And, and seeing some people where like they come straight out and they seem to like be doing really well, making a name for themselves, or other
Mm-hmm.
people who've been in it for so long. I mean, I didn't even do social media. Like, I didn't need it back when I was strictly in the treatment room. I did not need it. And then now, transitioning and just, yeah, sometimes being like, oh gosh, why isn't this happening or that happening? And I don't know. Learning your design really helps you stay in your own lane, and again, just be okay with it. And I think, yeah, stop looking outside of yourself for answers, or like people to copy, because that's the other thing. It's like, it's not going to necessarily work for you. It's like, if that's happening for them, there's something about that that's in alignment for them. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're pushing and trying to force something to happen, number one, forcing automatically is always like not gonna work. But number
Mm-hmm.
two, you just see, it's like, I can have the formula. It's like when people sign up and do courses and programs that are like, I'm going to teach you how to be successful, and it clearly worked for that person, but you can take it and somehow it doesn't work for you. It's like, that's because this is not part of your design. It's not in alignment for you. So let's figure out what is going to work for you. It's not that nothing will. That's the other thing. It's just like, you're just aligning with stuff that isn't correct.
So for anyone listening that is like, wow, you're like not only speaking to my soul right now, because we're talking about a lot of things that people do wrong. And I feel like it just inevitably happens to us all down
Mhm.
the esthetician journey, no matter if it's right now or maybe you experience it a year from now. What's the best way for somebody to get started? I'll just answer the fact that I think they should visit your Instagram. I think they should
Yeah.
visit your website and check out the free tool that you have, like you just shared with them, because
Yeah.
hello, it's free. But
Yes.
yeah, what are some ways, I guess, that people can start looking inward and something they can do to start like now?
Yeah, like I said, the free guide is, I made it for that purpose. It's like the place to start, just to get like a paragraph or two, just a couple little nuggets about your design, and start getting curious. But yeah, resources all over the place, just there's just so much. And then that 1 hour class is definitely, I made that very low barrier entry, $11, just to be like, hey, you're going to learn so much about yourself. You could stop there. You don't ever
Mhm.
have to take it any further. But even watching that, then the podcast, which is packed with information, I put out like 3 a week. It's crazy.
Oh,
But
wow. How do you
I think
do
that's,
that?
I'm a generator. I'm
I'm like,
obsessed. I'm obsessed with my
oh,
work. I know.
wow.
I know.
Okay, wow. If that's not showing you the difference between your and I's human
Yeah.
design, I don't know
Yeah.
what will
Yeah.
for people,
Yeah.
because I was doing once a week when I first started in 2020, and it stopped. Like, I'm not kidding you when I said I've never felt so depleted in my
Hmm.
life. I was
Hmm.
dreading every single week because I knew I had to come up with more material. And
Yeah.
finally, I just was like, you know what? Bi-weekly. And when I tell you, my life has changed for the better over
Yes.
bi-weekly. So what a like a example for the both of you and
Yeah.
I on exactly what that
Totally.
means.
Totally. And I will say this is like, people have asked me, but I'm like, I never don't have content. Like, the astrology slash human design is always happening. So like,
Yeah.
it's ripe. It's like, I knew when I started, I was like, this is great, because I don't ever have to come up with anything. It's ready for me. But I put out so much there. And then even I take that information, especially from like the weekly changes where certain planets are moving. And I've started to translate them. Probably about December or January, I started making them into posts for the treatment room. So each week I post like your energetic, basically, tips. So even if you're like, I'm curious about what she's talking about, but I don't really get it, it's like, I've made it so you don't even need to understand the depth that the podcast goes into. It's like, just check out those posts and you're like, oh, okay, this is the vibe of the energy this week. This would be a helpful frequency that I can put on my Spotify in the treatment room. This would be a good
Hmm.
essential oil. It's just like, kind of like what is happening. And I've had different people, who was it the other day? Monique, Birds of Paradise.
Hmm.
Monique. Okay, she was like, girl, like every time I look at your stuff, she's like, I'm already feeling that. And like it's like you got in my head, and
Yeah.
like read what was going on. And I'm like, I know this stuff is real. And so it's cool. I love doing it for the treatment room. And that's actually, again, where my work is going to be going, is like, how do we bring this modality that's very intellectual, very heady, that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, and it's really meant to be lived in the body. So like that's where things are moving to. It's like it is going to be I'm like, it will be in the treatment room. It doesn't make sense yet, but it makes sense in my head.
That's amazing. And then of course, I always like to turn this podcast back onto the guest and the person I'm having on. But like with your human design, like where do you see like your next year going? Like, do you have that mapped out yet? Do you feel like you just kind of are living within like the weeks?
I try to live by my design best possible. I definitely, like I said, I have a vision though, like the energetic aesthetics thing. I have been working and developing how, like I said, how to take that and make it clinically palatable, so that it's something that can, some of these things, you're interested in working with energy, you're interested in basically doing more for your patients and clients than you typically do. And this goes for everybody, like waxing even. And you're like, I have more knowledge and more awareness and a little bit of like, ability to understand how to work with energy. And now I can utilize this in my treatment room. That's where I see this going. So there's big things that are coming that I'm so excited about, but we're still in like, kind of that developmental phase. So by September, I'm teaching, so I have to have it all ready.
Yeah.
But I'm teaching a hands-on workshop this year in Dallas.
Well, listen, coming out with 3 podcasts a week, I know for a fact you will be complete by September.
Yes,
so
yes,
I am
yes.
excited to see everything. And Mikaela, seriously, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. You are a guest who is different from all of the rest, because it's such a unique approach to this industry. But I brought you on because I know for a fact so many people are going to be curious about this exact topic today.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me. We're going to have you on my show too,
Yay.
because then we'll really get into your design over there. It's like we just barely scratched the surface, but it will be very fun.
I have a feeling that you know me more than I know me, and yeah, we'll have to
Everybody
get into some
says that.
stuff. Yeah.
I can look at a chart and I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Okay, there we go. I love it.
You just let me know how to tune in, and even I am curious to look into more of your courses and programs, because I'm like, wow, I learned so much in that 1 hour time, and I feel like, again, we've only scratched the surface. So thank you, seriously.
When we get done, I'll send you a few notes. I'll be listen to these couple of episodes, and then we'll talk more. But yes, I definitely want to have you on for sure.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.